Recently, more and more people have been recommending that I use secondary Shiver in my build. The problem is, most of the time, secondary Shiver sucks. But why? The short of it is, secondary Shiver does not do what it says it does, and what it does do is considerably worse than what it should do. What it says is enemies take up to 45% extra damage per cold status effect on them. Cold stacks up to 10 times, so the enemies take 450% extra damage at maximum rank with full cold stacks. Right? Wrong. It makes the weapon equipped with this arcane deal up to 45% more damage to enemies per every cold stack on them. That is a very important difference. It does not work like a vital status effect which makes the enemy take more damage, therefore multiplying the damage you do to them. It makes your weapon do more damage. Now this wouldn't be bad if it was its own multiplier. Unfortunately, it isn't. It's basically the same damage multiplier you get from galvanized shot, meaning that for the most part, on hit scan weapons, it's going to be considered base damage and therefore additive to things like Hornet Strike, and for, once again, most projectile weapons, it's going to be considered condition damage, and it's going to be additive with the damage you get from galvanized shot. It also, just like condition overload, does not work on area of effect damage. So on most weapons, if it works at all that is, it's going to be additive to something. But this also reveals to us its one potential use. A weapon where condition overload is multiplicative with base damage, it does not do area of effect damage, and it does not want to run condition overload via galvanized shot. That's the only instance in which I can see the arcane being useful. There are technically weapons where it's not multiplicative and you could use secondary Shiver to replace Hornet Strike or Cannonade, but there are better arcanes that don't require as much faff and constant priming on the enemies. The main issue here is that the way we mod in Warframe is we generally want to stack as many different multipliers as possible. That's usually the best way to do the biggest damage. I've talked about this before, but here's a quick example of what I'm talking about. We have two lines here. They both showcase a weapon that does 100 damage per shot, and they both have two mods that increase its damage by 45%. The first calculation at the top is what happens when the mods are multiplicative. The second one at the bottom is what happens if they're additive. Now, this might not seem like much, at the end of the day it's only 20 damage, but this difference only grows as we add more and more mods. Here, the difference would be about 20 damage, but add in one extra mod and now it's almost 70 damage. Let's add one more, just for fun. This is why you do not want to stack additive mods unless you have no other option. It's why acuity mods became considerably worse when they changed them to not be multiplicative anymore. And it's also why secondary Shiver, in most scenarios, just sucks. It would be good, tremendous even, if it did what it says. But unfortunately, it just doesn't. There are definitely scenarios where it can be useful, and better than other arcanes. But those scenarios are few and far between. It is an incredibly niche arcane that for the most part is not worth running on most weapons. And that, my dearest dudes and dudettes, is why secondary Shiver sucks. I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed the video and maybe you learned something today. I would also like to extend a special thank you to all the channel members. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate your support. It means a lot to me. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.